So, very good evening, all. Today, we are going to start with our modern Indian history series, and this is crash course, as you know. So that's why we have selected some very important topics that are frequently asking for this examination. One among such a topic is major British legislations in India. As you guys know, British they ruled India for 200 years. And during that period, for the sake of their better administration, for social changes, they have introduced many legislations or many acts. So as part of that, we are going to discuss some of the very important acts here only. We'll be also discussing some other very important constitutional changes or legislative changes like Regulating Act of 1773, Fixing the Act of 1784, 1793, 1813, 1833, 1853 Charter Acts, then Indian Council Acts, Government of India Act 1999, 35. We'll be also discussing that later. So here we are going to focus on very important social legislations. Okay, so as part of that, basically, you have to have a basic understanding regarding the chronological understanding about how the British or how the Europeans they are going to have their presence in the history of modern India. So arrival of Europeans since 1498, as you guys know, we have this Portuguese power, then comes the Dutch power, English is going to come, and English is going to establish their company by 1600, and Dutch is by 1602, and later comes French East India Company. Thus, there we can see many European powers are coming. But one European power they are going to begin to dominate. They are none other than English East India Company itself. So as part of that, you will come across certain very important battles from 1757 to 1857. That period simply marked as the British paramountcy period or the British expansionary period or the colonialist period in the history of India. And during this period, the English East India Company is going to rule. And after 1857 revolt, what we can see, British Crown is going to rule. British Crown, or thus onwards we can see the post of Viceroy, and before that we can see the post of Governor Generals. So such kind of legislation, administrative changes can be found during this period. And thus happened 1857 revolt, and after that British Crown is going to rule under Viceroy. That's what we can see, the Indian nationalists, they are going to reject or they are going to react against this British colonialism through a particular movement called as freedom movement, others called as national movement. Thus, we have one of the very important body called as Indian National Congress since 1885. Until 1947, we are discussing about different phases, different natures, different leaderships of this freedom movement. And after meaning, we have to discuss the post-independent history as well. So this is the chronological understanding and idea regarding what all major things happened in the British period or in the modern history of India. And today, as I said, or as I mentioned earlier, we are going to discuss some of the very important social legislations by British in India. And we are going to discuss some social reform acts. Most of the topics you might know, but for your examination, you should have some extra effort or extra knowledge from these areas. We are focusing on such kind of information. Okay, so as part of that, we are going to discuss Bengal Sadi Regulation Act of 1829, Abolition of Slavery Act 1843, Hindu Widow Remarriage Act of 1856, Sharda Act of 1929. So you have to study these for in very important manner because at least you can expect one or two questions from this area itself. Plus, as I said earlier, you have to learn about different administrative or legislative changes during British era. Since the Regulating Act of 1773 till 1935 Government of India Act. We'll be discussing about this topic in our upcoming lecture, but for now, we are going to discuss these four. So Bengal Sadi Regulating Act. Basically, you know the basic concept is Sadi. It's a Hindu custom or a Hindu practice of committing suicide or jumping into the fire of the burial of her husband. That practice is called Sadi. We can see the Sadi practice since ancient time itself. We have particularly one important inscription that we have already discussed in our inscription chapter. And that inscription is none other than Iran inscription during the time of Banu Gupta. So this is the first evidence regarding the Sadi in India. And during this modern time, especially in the 19th century, when we are discussing about the 19th century, the practice of Sadi that is going to be condemned or criticized by the nationalist or the educated middle class in high sense, and they're considering this one as an inferior or it's a backward practice, and they're going to reject such kind of practice. But the upper caste Hindus practiced this custom for very long years. So there happened some kind of conflict regarding this practice. Thus, finally, there passed Bengal Sati Regulating Act in 1829. We'll be discussing on that. After that, we'll be discussing regarding the slavery. So regarding slavery, as you guys know, since the time of the ancient history itself, not only in India, in the world as itself, what we can see, different forms of slavery existed. You might have heard about this Roman battlefields, Roman slaves, such kind of things. Similarly, in Indian history also, we can see many slaves for ages. So regarding that, 1833. In 1833, the British Parliament passed a particular act abolishing slavery in Britain. After that, 10 years after that, okay, 10 years after that, we can see the abolition of slavery in India as well. Next one is regarding Hindu Widow Remarriage Act, another case. As you guys know, as we discussed with Sati, most of the upper caste Hindu women had to commit or they had to practice this Sati after the death of her husband. And those who kept away from this practice, they were considered as outcasting, or they were considered as, oh, the lady who is not respecting our custom rituals. Such kind of many kind of social exclusions were there. So finally, there existed many widows for their rights, for their remarrying rights. There passed a particular act in 1856 that is called as the Hindu Widow Remarriage Act of 1856. And finally, we have this Sharada Act of 1929. Tell me, guys, about which topic Sharada Act of 1929 deals with? As you guys know, here Sadi, here slavery, here widow remarriage, and finally Sharada. Who is Sharada? Okay, so no need to answer to who is Sharada, but answer on which topic or what was the purpose of this act?
Education.
Just education is not. Then just have a try. Guess time. You can guess anything.
Child marriages.
Very good, very good. It's regarding child marriage. It's regarding child marriage. Fine. Okay. So we are going to discuss each of this topic in detail based on the requirement of your examination. First one is Bengal Sati Regulating Act of 1829. In their 1829, they passed this particular act, Sati Regulation Act. Otherwise, it is called as Regulation 17. Not this point as well. It's very important. Sometimes you'll be given certain statement, consider statement regarding the British regulation of Regulation 17. Such kind of statement will be there. So first of all, you have to understand this is regarding Bengal Sati Regulatory Act. That should be your first statement. Second statement, what is Sati? So regarding the practice of Sati, that is live burning of widow, that is called as Sati. Okay, that is called as Sati. And this act made the practice of Sati illegal in all areas under company rule, and its practitioners liable to prosecution. So it was applicable in the old areas where we can see the direct administration of company. That's the point. Not in this princely state, it was directly under the company's rule area only. And we have one very important social reformer, as you guys know, Rajaram Mohan Roy and his Brahma Samaj. They openly criticized such activities of Sati. Okay, finally, that attempt or that venture or that what's behind works done by Rajaram Mohan Roy helped for this Regulation Act of 1829. And it was passed on December 4, 1829 by then Governor General Lord William Bentinck. You have to study this date as well. You know why? The last time on your net examination, there was asked certain 5 statement questions in which the dates were challenging. Okay, so sometimes they'll be confused with the certain dates, even some personalities or whatever the initiatives. So that's why I'm saying you have to note December 4, 1829. That date is as very, very important. By Lord William Bentinck was the Governor General. And another point, when it was passed in 1829, it was just applicable in Bengal Presidency alone. But later it was extended to Madras and Bombay presidencies by 1830. Just to note that point also. And we have, as we discussed, Rajaram Mohan Roy, we have another very important personality who supported this Regulation Act of 1829, or otherwise we can say who opposed this sati, was William Carey. William Carey is very important British or English Christian evangelist or Christian missionary who established this Sarambur University, Sarambur Missionary, such kind of things, Sarambur. And along with Raja Ram Mohan Roy, these two people, they were vehemently or they critically talked about or critically introduced this sati practice. And finally, what we can see, this was abolished, or the practice was abolished on December 4, 1829. Now, obviously, as I said in the introduction, it was practiced by the upper caste Hindus, especially for a long past years. So obviously, when there happened such kind of legislation, obviously there occurred certain reactionary policies against this. Thus, we have one person called as Radha Kandadev, and who formed this Dharma Sabha against Brahma Samaj. Actually, this is a topic that you are going to discuss or that you are going to study in the social reformation chapter only. But we are going to discuss here for the understanding of this topic. We have this Radha Kandadev. Under his Dharma Sabha, he is going to oppose both Brahma Samaj and Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Okay. So such kind of information, just to note that. And who saw the ban as an interference in the Hindu religious affairs and violation of George III Statute 37. There was a statute of the King George III, and it says that Hindus complete non-interference with their religion. So we can see British government also introduced certain pacifist policy in which George III, the king, assured the people of the country, we will not be interfering in your religious matters. But it was against this statute, what we can see, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, William Carey, finally William Pendick, they all abolished this sati practice in 1829. So Radha Kandadev, he under his Dharma Sabha opposed Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Brahma Sabha, and also criticized that it was against the policy of George III's Statute 37. 37. You have to note this number as well. You got the topic. We have discussed what's the act, why that act, who are the major personalities behind that, how the reaction was happened when it was passed. You got it?
Sir, excuse me, sir. The last point was I didn't understand, sir.
Okay, last point is very simple. We discussed about whom? Raja Ram Mohan Roy, William Carey. These were the very important personalities who supported this Bengal Sati Revolution Act 1829, or otherwise they criticized the practice of sati. So there came certain reaction from higher caste Hindus as well, or the Orthodox Hindus under Radha Kandadev. And Radha Kandadev, he going to criticize Raja Ram Mohan Roy's attitude towards this sati program, and he criticized against Raja Ram Mohan Roy's Brahma Samaj under Radha Kandadev's Dharma Sabha. It's a particular organization. Also, Radha Kandadev said that this measure or this initiative taken by this British administration, that is the Bengal Sati Regulation Act of 1829, is basically the violation of George III's Statute number 37. And this Statute number 37 says that we British won't interfere in the religious matters of Hindus. But what we can see, they interfered. So Radha Kandadev says it was the violation of George III's statute also. You got it now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Moving forward, Abolition of Slavery Act, very simple concept. First of all, you have to understand that in British Parliament, it was passed in 1833. Meaning what? In Britain, the slavery was abolished in 1833. And later in 1843, what we can see? It was abolished in India as well. It is called as Act 5 of 1843. Just to note this one as well. It outlawed many economic transactions associated with slavery. So different practices or programs or economic transactions associated with the slavery was outlawed or it was abolished by this act. Later, the Penal Code of 1816, as you guys know, IPC, that was also declared the trade in slavery as illegal. And just to note that when this law was passed, Lord Ellenborough was the Governor General of India. He was the Governor General. So you have to note this much of points only. One more thing regarding this module, you have to read about both Brahma Samaj and Dharma Sabha. Also read about Radha Kandadev specifically. Okay, this is an assignment for you. Read about Radha Kandadev specifically, meaning take down the major points and write it down in your notebook or save it somewhere and have a good reading on about that person. You can use Wikipedia or other Britannica or other source that you get from Google or a web browser, whatever it is. You have to read about it. That is very important. I'll show you some very important model in the end session as well, how you have to prepare. And Hindu Widow Remarriage Act, 1856. We have two very important personalities. One is Rajaram Mohan Roy itself, then Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. We have Rajaram Mohan Roy is Brahma Samaj. This Brahma Samaj or Rajaram Mohan Roy during his lifespan is going to die by 1830s. And before his death, Rajaram Mohan Roy along with Sati, both are interconnected that much. Along with Sati, he also supported for widow remarriage. And later, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, he strongly stood for such purpose. For that purpose, they carried out many kind of campaigns to understand the women community, to enjoy or to understand the social possibilities of having widow remarriages. For that, they conducted many campaigns like books, pamphlets, petitions, everything and everything. They conducted many ways. And this is important. Now you have to prepare, study that 1856 July. And we have 13th July as well. And one more is that 26th July. 13 July plus 13, that is 26. We have two very important dates. You have to study that. We have one person called as J.P. Grant. You have to note this name. J.P. Grant. Note his name. He was the member of Viceroy's Governor General or Governor General's Council. Sorry. He's the member of Governor General's Council. And finally, he introduced the bill and it was passed on 13th July and it came into enactment by 26th July 1856. Thus, it is called Widow Remarriage Act of 1856, otherwise called as Act 15 of 1856. We have discussed Act 17 as Sadi, in bracket you can say 1829. And this is another act, Act of 15, called as Widow Remarriage 1856. Not such kind of points. This is the basic information that you have to understand. Okay, and it was drafted by Lord Dalhousie and passed by Lord Canning. So we have two very important presence of two viceroys or two governor generals, and it was during the time of Lord Dalhousie it was put into bill, and later it was finally passed and enacted during the time of Lord Canning. And the enactment date is 26th July, and passing date was 13th July. Just to note that you have to study, focus on this 26th July 1856. This is enough. And focus on, we have two very important personalities, both Rajaram Mohan Roy and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, both advocated for widow remarriage as well. You got it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Finally, Sharada Act. Tell me who is Sharada then? Sharada. Who is that? Tell me, from where was Sharada?
She
Who
was
is
the first,
Sharada? Tell
first
me.
lady, I think first lady who married.
First lady who married a?
I think she was one of the
Uh,
daughter of some Indian personality. Foreign personality.
Okay, what about this? It's a time for Gus. You can tell anything about her. About the Sharada. About Sharada. Sharada. Any other opinion? Yogesh Babu, are you there? Priya, not audible.
No idea, sir.
No idea. Okay, that's a good approach. If you don't know, don't touch it. Okay, Kaveri, Nandini.
Ready, lesson.
Okay,
Sir.
fine. Kaveri. Okay, fine. Of course. Okay, fine. Let me explain. Sharada basically is not a woman, it's a man. It's a man. Sharada Act of 1929. I'll explain. Before discussing Sharada Act, first of all, let's discuss the issue of child marriage in India. Child marriage. That means what? Getting married in their ages before 18 nowadays, right? The modern times, what we can see, the marriage age for girls are fixed at 18. Before 18, marriage is considered as child marriage in India right now. But we had one time in which even the girls were married before 10, the age of their 10. Such kind of practices were existed, but the most important issue and problem was the 10-aged girl is going to marry 50 or 60-aged man. And this person is going to die soon of many reasons. And he dies and she became widow. Either she has to continue her widowhood, otherwise she has to jump into fire called a sati system. So such kind of systems were existed during that period. So we are discussing the child marriage enactment in different phases. How the child marriage issue is going to resolve through ages that we are going to discuss. In November 1870, we have Indian Reforms Association by Keshav Chandra Sen. As you guys know, when we discuss Brahma Samaj, we can say what? It was around 1828. Then later, the leadership was taken by Debendranath Tagore. And later, the Acharya became whom? Keshav Chandra Sen. During Keshav Chandra Sen, he is going to take many measures. One among was Indian Reforms Association. And Keshav Chandra Sen is going to criticize this child marriage. Unfortunately, there happened in 1865 some conflict in this Brahma Samaj and split it into Brahma Samaj of India and Adi Brahma Samaj because of the child marriage issue itself. That you have to read in Brahma Samaj chapter. I'm not going to discuss that now. But regarding the child marriage issue, just to note, one event was during 1870, Indian Reforms Association was founded by Keshav Chandra Sen that promoted to rise the age of child marriage. And a particular journal was issued, Mahapab Bal Vivah. Just to understand what it says, Mahapab Bal Vivah, child marriage is a cardinal sin. It was written by B.M. Malabari. Just against the child marriage. You have to study this name of the author and work. And in 1846, the minimum marriageable age for girl was only 10 years. During the first half of 19th century, if a girl reaches her age of 10, she could be married. So it was 10 years only. And in 1872, there comes the Native Marriage Act, that is called a Civil Marriage Act. Native Marriage Act are called as Civil Marriage Act. This act actually raised the age of the girl's age, but it had very limited periphery because it was not applicable to Hindus, Muslims, and other recognized religions. Basically, they introduced some policy, but was not applicable to the major religions or the major communities of the time. Then why should we have such kind of legislation? So such a problem was affected during 1872 Native Marriage Act. Finally, in 1891, we have again B.M. Malabari. He is going to give much effort. So as we discussed regarding Sadi, we have Raja Ram Mohan Rai. When we discuss about widow remarriage act, we have Ishar Chandra Sagar. Similarly, when we discuss about child marriage, we have one person called as B.M. Malabari. So due to his certain efforts and his legislative pressure, were passed the Act of the Age of Consent. Age of Consent Bill or Act of Age of Consent that enacted and that prohibited the marriage of girl below the age of 12. So what we can see, the Age of Consent Bill that simply raised the age from 10 to 12. 10 to 12. We can see in the history, there is going to have a good criticism or there have many conflict, many violence or issues on this act. Even as you guys know, Balagangadhar Tilak, one of the extremist leaders, is going to oppose such kind of bill because he also, like as we discussed, Radhakanda Badav, they say it's an intervention in their community, in their religious belief. So what we can see, age of consent in the 1891 by B.M. Malabari that raised the age of girl from 10 to 12. And finally, what we can see, one important legislation passed in 1929 through Sharada Act, in which the minimum age was raised to 14. So you can have this chronological idea. Try to take down the notes like this one. It was 10 in 1846. It was 12 by 1891, Age of Consent Act, and by 14 by 1929 Sharada Act. And finally, 1978, what we can see, it became 18 as we are following nowadays. This is the idea. You got it? How the ages has been increased for these girls by time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
you
sir.
have to please write it down in this chronological manner. That would be much more easier for you to learn.
Yes, sir.
Okay, make it faster. I'll wait you.
Hello. Sir, കേൾക്കാമോ?
Yes, Priya, tell me.
സർ, ശാരദ ആക്ട് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞത് ഒരു മെയിലിന്റെ പേരാണെന്നല്ലേ
I'll
പറഞ്ഞത്?
come to that. I'll come to that.
ഓക്കെ.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Done, sir.
Okay, thank you. So now we are going to discuss what is Sharada Act. Now we have just discussed how these ages of the girl child has been increased throughout the ages by the efforts of B.M. Malabari and other social reformatory leaders of the time. Now regarding this Child Marriage Act, we can otherwise called as Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929 that was passed on 28 September 1929 in the Imbi Legislative Council of India. And that fixed the marriage age of girls at 14 and boys at 18. Okay, and later it was amended 18 for girls and 21 for boys in 1978. And it is known as Sharada Act after its sponsor Har Bilas Sharada. So we have one person called as Har Bilas Sharada. He is the man who totally supported for such kind of legislation throughout his age. And finally, based on his contribution and duties, his sponsorship for this program, it was named after him. Now, who is Har Bilas Sharada? Not this point. Like this, you have to refer about Radhakanta Das for Dharma Sabha. He's born in Ajmer. So he's basically Ajmer region in Rajasthan. So he started as a career in government college as a teacher. Now need to study such kind of things, but have just a general understanding. In 1888, he visited Indian National Congress at Allahabad, later also participated in many Congress sessions. 1892, Sharada or Harbilas Sharada, he started working at the judicial department in Ajmer Mewar province. So as a teacher, as a politician, as a judicial member, he's going to explore, he's going to have a good knowledge, practical knowledge, experience and everything. And later in 1894, he became the municipal commissioner of Ajmer and worked on revising the Ajmer regulation book that deals with the laws and regulations of Ajmer. Whatever it is, not need to study, but you have to know two very important points. One is he's basically from Ajmer, then he's having Congress membership, and he's going to have what influence in different fields. And in 1925, he was appointed as a senior judge of Chief Court in Jodhpur, Rajasthan. So he became the judge as well. In 1925, he was elected the president of All India Vaishya Conference in Bareilly. In 1930, he was elected president of Indian National Social Conference in Lahore. So Indian National Social Conference means it's a branch of INC that deals with the social issues. It's going to have such kind of leadership. And he's the president of All India Vaishya Conference. Such information, just to note that. And he's a follower of Hindu reformer Dayananda Saraswati. That's why he's an ardent supporter of Arya Samaj in Ajmer as well. In 1888, he was appointed as the president of Ajmer chapter of the Arya Samaj. So here I have consolidated most important points regarding who is this Har Bilas Sharada. Similarly, you have to note while you're studying his location, which region he belongs to, his major areas of activities, any particular contributions he made, either political, social, or economical. You have to note this much of things. Sometimes you'll get a question regarding Har Bilas Sharada. So you have to understand Ajmer person, having membership in INC, political field, teaching field, member of judiciary, or a judge of who was a senior judge, and having this influence with the relation with the Arya Samaj. All India Vaishya Conference was done on his leadership, and finally the Sharada Act of 1929, and it was passed on 20th December, not this date as well. So you have to prepare like this one. Hope your doubt is clear now. Priya, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sir,
So guys,
what Harbilas Sharada has sponsored, sir, towards this act?
he's the man who actually stood strongly to bring this legislation. Like we discussed, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Rajaram Mohan Roy, And Harbilas Sharada is the man who strongly supported for rising the age of girls from 12 to 14 or something upward. And for that, he totally influenced this British government, especially in Ajmer area, also Imperial Legislative Council of India. And finally, he's the man who totally acted for this. Thus, we are respecting this act based on his name, after his name. Got it?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So guys, that's all about this module we are going to discuss now. We'll be discussing about some other important legislations like the Regulating Act of 1773, such kind of things till 1935 Act in the next episode. Okay.